Welcome back to the Old Photo Vault channel. The Woman by the Hedge. Suburban Driveway, Ohio. Late summer, 1998. The photo was taken after a cookout, when the evening was still warm and the cicadas hadn't started yet. Linda stood in the driveway with one hand on her hip, wearing her old football jersey, the number already peeling from years of washing. She was waiting for her husband to bring out the cooler, looking off toward the street as if someone might be late. Behind her, the hedge looks thicker than it should, darker, almost pressed forward. Only later did her sister notice the shape inside it, a second figure, upright, facing the camera, its outline smudged as if it had moved at the wrong moment. The neighbors remembered that house had belonged to a woman named Margaret, who used to stand outside every evening, waiting for a son who never came home from Vietnam. Linda swore she was alone that night, but she also admitted she felt watched while the picture was taken, and briefly wondered why someone behind her was holding their breath. The Dog That Learned His Face. Garden Courtyard, Northern France, 1902. It was meant to be a simple portrait taken in the shade after lunch, when Henri grew tired and let his eyes close. He sat in the wicker chair with both dogs arranged carefully. The small one alert on the left, the older one settled heavily on his right knee. The photograph smells faintly of ivy and damp stone, even now. At first glance, the larger dog seems only patient, almost solemn. But when Henri's daughter studied the print years later, she noticed something unsettling in its face. The eyes set too forward, the mouth shaped with a tired familiarity, the suggestion of a man who has learned how to stay still. Henri had often joked that the dog listened better than people did, that it watched him as if memorizing. After Henri died, the dog refused to leave the chair, sitting upright for hours, its expression unchanged. In the photograph, Henri appears asleep. The dog, however, looks awake in a way that feels practiced, as though it had been waiting for this moment to be seen. The empty place was set. Dining room, Midwestern United States. Christmas Eve, 1963. The table had been arranged since morning, the good plates stacked neatly, the candles lit early because the light outside was already failing. Edith stood behind the punch bowl, hands folded, wearing the black dress she saved for holidays and funerals alike. She insisted everything be just right. Even though fewer people came each year, to the left of the table, near the chair no one used anymore. The air looks thinner in the photograph, as if the wallpaper itself had begun to breathe. Edith's daughter didn't notice it until years later. The pale shape, half-formed, leaning slightly forward, waiting. That chair had belonged to Harold, who died quietly the previous winter before dessert was served. Edith never removed his place setting. She said it was habit, nothing more. But on Christmas Eve, she always poured one extra glass. And in the picture, the space beside it seems occupied by someone who arrived early and never learned how to leave. The hat she lowered. Boarding house parlor, New England. November 1911. Mrs. Caldwell sat by the window while the light thinned, her coat still on, as if she might leave at any moment. She had adjusted her hat carefully before the photograph, pulling the netting low, the way she did when she wished not to be recognized. The landlady remembered thinking she looked tired, not ill, just worn down by waiting. In the picture, her face is turned away, resigned, almost practiced in disappointment. Only later does the second shape become visible, hovering above the crown of her hat, bent slightly forward as though trying to see what she saw. Mrs. Caldwell had lost her husband at sea the previous spring. His body never recovered, his death confirmed only by silence. She insisted he would come back, that men like him disliked goodbyes. The landlady said Mrs. Caldwell never spoke to empty rooms, only to the air just behind her. In the photograph, that air seems crowded, leaning close, as if something unfinished had followed her inside. and finally learned where to stand. The woman behind the couch. Living room, Southern California. Summer, 1974. The picture was taken after dinner, when the curtains were already drawn and the house felt settled for the night. Carol sat neatly on the couch, ankles crossed, smiling the way people did when they were told to hold still just a second longer. The cushions were new, the bright pillows arranged to look casual, though nothing in that room ever really was. She remembered thinking the flash felt warmer than it should. When the film came back, everyone commented on how nice she looked, how calm. It was Carol's mother who noticed the shape near the wall, thin and pale, standing just behind the couch as if unsure where to put its hands. The outline resembles a younger woman, wearing a dress that went out of style before Carol was born. Years later, Carol admitted she never liked sitting there. She said the couch always felt occupied, as though someone rose only when the camera asked them to stay. The smoke that stayed. Basement study, Pacific Northwest. Autumn, 1996. The photograph was taken late, after the rain had settled into the walls and the house smelled faintly of damp wood. Rachel sat at the desk where her father used to sort bills, holding a cigarette she barely wanted, her elbow resting on old letters and unopened mail. The wood paneling made the room feel smaller than it was, as if it remembered every conversation it had ever kept. The smoke should have drifted upward, thinned, disappeared. Instead, it hangs in the picture, pale and upright, gathering shape beside her shoulder. At first, it looks like a trick of light, a reflection from the glass of framed poems on the wall, but the longer you look, the more it resembles a figure standing close, leaning in as if listening. Rachel said the room always felt occupied, even empty. Her father died there the winter before, seated in that same chair, cigarette burning down, unnoticed. In the photo, Rachel's expression is tired, not afraid. It is the smoke that looks intent, as though it finally had someone to sit with and no reason to leave. The one who waited on the landing. Boarding house stairwell, Pennsylvania. 38. The stairs were narrow and polished from decades of careful feet, the kind that learned where to step in the dark. Mrs. Harlan took the photograph while standing at the bottom, meaning only to show how steep the climb was for her sister's letters. The banister curves gently, the walls closing in the higher your eyes travel, until the landing appears like a pause in thought. It was later, after the print had yellowed slightly, that someone noticed the face near the top, pale, open-mouthed, caught between rooms. Mrs. Harlan said the house had always made that feeling, as if someone stopped there and never finished going up or down. Years earlier, a tenant named Arthur fell ill halfway to his room and rested on that landing, promising to continue in a moment. He never did. In the photograph, the stairs remain empty. Only the waiting looks complete. The face that stayed. Studio portrait, Chicago, spring, 1947. The photograph was meant to replace an older one, the cracked print that had been kept too long in a drawer. Eleanor sat for it in a borrowed jacket, her hair pinned carefully, smiling the way she'd practiced in mirrors since girlhood. The photographer told her to think of something pleasant, and she did. Of the river, of a promise made, and never answered. When the print came back, the tear from the old photograph appeared faintly across the new one, though no one could explain how. Beneath it, near her shoulder, a second face lingers, smaller, softer, as if pressed up from another time. Eleanor recognized it immediately. It was herself at 17, the age she was when her twin sister vanished during a picnic by the water. The family said accidents erase people cleanly, but Eleanor knew better. Some faces, once learned, refused to leave the frame, waiting patiently for the rest of the picture to catch up. The second smile. Kitchen, rural Midwest. Winter, 1982. The photograph was taken late, after the snow had sealed the windows and the house smelled of cigarettes and something medicinal. Tommy leaned against the counter, proud in a careless way, holding up the brown bottle like a joke that didn't need explaining. His hair fell into his eyes, and he smiled with the confidence of someone who hadn't yet learned what stays behind. The curtains were half drawn, the refrigerator humming steadily, as if the room were trying to sound alive. When the photo was developed, his mother noticed the mark on his face first, a blur near the cheekbone she assumed was dust. Then she saw the second expression forming inside his own. Older, narrower, watching out through him. It looked tired, almost relieved. Years later, after Tommy was gone, she realized every picture taken in that kitchen carried it. A face learning where to appear, practicing patience, waiting for someone else to grow into it. The bath that was never empty. Private residence bathroom, Southern Europe. Late evening, 2003. The bath had been run too hot, the steam softening the tiles until the room felt smaller than it should. Claire leaned back in the oversized tub, eyes half closed, listening to the faint drip of water settling into its own rhythm. She had poured a drink and set it within reach, enjoying the rare quiet of a house that usually insisted on being noticed. The photograph was taken as a joke, a novelty tub shaped like a teacup, something to remember the renovation by. Later, when she looked again, she saw the pale figure standing beside the bath, delicate and unfinished, as if drawn from the steam itself. It seems to be watching her, hands folded, patient. Claire remembered the previous owner, a woman who drowned quietly one winter, the pipes frozen, the bath left running too long. In the picture, the water looks calm. It is the figure that appears relieved, as though the bath had finally been filled again and someone had remembered to stay. The rosary that wore through. Abandoned rectory, rural Pennsylvania. Early morning, 1959. The statue had been moved closer to the window to catch what little light remained, the paint already flaking in careful, petal-like curls. Sister Agnes dusted it every Sunday, even after the chapel closed, even after no one came to pray. She said the rosary beads felt warmer each year, as though handled between visits. In the photograph, taken by a real estate man who meant only to document the damage, the light falls gently across the bowed face, softening the cracks until they resemble lines of age rather than neglect. What unsettles is not the statue's expression, but the way the beads pull inward, pressed into the stone hands as if recently tightened. Agnes had died quietly in that room, kneeling when her heart gave out. The locals said she never left because she had nothing unfinished. Still, the rosary continues to sink deeper into the figure, as though someone unseen keeps praying, wearing the stone down by touch alone. The call that didn't end. Kitchen apartment, Northern California. Autumn, 1971. The photo was taken on a quiet afternoon, when the kitchen felt more like a sitting room than a place to cook. Marlene stretched out on the counter, shoes still on, cradling the phone against her ear while the cord curled obediently across the wall. She was listening more than speaking, nodding as if the voice on the other end could see her. The wallpaper had begun to fade unevenly, its pattern thinning near the cabinet where steam always gathered. Only years later did anyone notice the pale shape beside her shoulder, rising from the wall like a reflection that forgot its source. It appears to lean toward the receiver, mouth close, waiting its turn. Marlene said the call that day lasted a long time, though she couldn't remember what was said. After she moved out, the new tenants complained that the phone would sometimes click softly at night, as if someone was still holding the line open, unwilling to be the one who finally hangs up. The third sister. Studio portrait, Eastern Europe, 1894. The photograph shows the two sisters arranged carefully, hands resting where they had been told, eyes steady from long practice. Anna sits, Maria stands, their dresses pressed, their scarves pinned tight against the drafty room. The photographer remembered how quiet they were, how neither asked to adjust or rest. It was meant to mark Maria's engagement, a simple record before she left the village. When the plate was developed, a third presence appeared faintly behind them, barely more than a suggestion of a face forming in the worn background. The family said it was damage, age, a flaw in the glass. But Anna knew better. Their youngest sister, Elena, had died the winter before, buried quickly when the ground thawed just enough. In the image, the pale figure leans closer to Maria, not touching, only watching. Anna later said it made sense. Elena had always hated being left behind, the man who wasn't on the list. Field Camp, American West. Late afternoon, 1936. The photograph shows Henry paused between tasks, plate balanced in his hands, hat tipped back just enough to catch the light. The tent behind him is neatly arranged, supplies stacked, a jacket draped where someone planned to return. It was taken during a break, when the wind had settled and the men spoke quietly, conserving energy. At first, nothing seems wrong. Then your eye drifts left, into the deeper shade of the canvas, where a second figure stands half-formed, pale and indistinct, as if the day failed to finish him. He appears to be watching Henry eat, waiting politely. Later, records list everyone in that camp. One name is crossed out, written twice, then omitted entirely. Henry said there had always been an extra place at the table, just in case. In the photograph, the place remains occupied by someone who never learned they were no longer expected. The dog who wouldn't go home. Old Cemetery, England. Early spring, 1912. The grave was easy to miss among the larger stones, set back beneath trees that kept the ground damp year-round. A small carved dog lay at the foot of the tomb, its paws tucked under as if settling in for a long wait. Visitors assumed it was decorative, a sentimental touch ordered by a grieving family. But the caretaker remembered otherwise. Thomas Havers had been buried there after a sudden illness, and his dog stayed by the fresh earth for days, refusing food, refusing to move. When it finally disappeared, the family had the statue placed, believing it kinder than wondering. Years later, this photograph was taken to document the older graves. In the image, the stone dog looks worn smooth around the eyes, as though handled often. The caretaker noticed the moss beneath it was always pressed flat, no matter the season. He said it felt wrong to disturb it. After all, someone was clearly still keeping watch and seemed to know exactly where to lie. The sixth seat, City Park Bench, Central Europe. Autumn, 1965. The photograph was taken late, when the park lamps had just come on and the air smelled faintly of leaves and smoke. 5 women sat close together on the bench, coats buttoned, knees aligned, passing cigarettes and comments in low voices meant only for each other. They were office friends, newly independent, enjoying the mild rebellion of staying out past supper. What strikes you first is how carefully they make room. Their bodies angled inward, as if accommodating someone who arrived late. Only after do you notice the narrow gap beside the woman in blue, a space shaped exactly like a person who has stood up too quickly. The women remembered laughing when the flash went off, startled by something they couldn't name. Years later, one admitted there had been 6 of them that night. Helena, quiet, recently widowed, who said she'd catch up after lighting a cigarette. In the photograph, the bench holds her place. The others look as though they are still waiting for her to sit back down. The face in the cuff. Convent Chapel, Southern France. Winter, 1924. The photograph was taken after evening prayers, when the chapel had grown cold and the sisters moved slowly, careful not to disturb the quiet they had earned. Sister Madeleine sat upright in the carved chair, hands folded neatly, her rosary looped as it always was. The photographer remembered how peaceful she looked, her eyes half closed, as if resting between thoughts. It was only later, when the print was examined closely, that the small face appeared in the shadow of her sleeve, pressed into the cuff at her wrist. The features are soft but unmistakable, a mouth shaped as if mid-breath, eyes turned inward. Madeleine had entered the convent young, after caring for her younger brother through a long illness that ended one night without warning. She never spoke of him, only tightened her sleeves in winter. In the photograph, her hands remain still, but the fabric seems to hold something gently, as though refusing to let go. The long way back, farmhouse yard, Northern Europe. Late summer, 1908. The photograph shows the yard as it always was, quiet and ordinary. The steps freshly swept and the garden left to grow where it pleased. A woman stands near the path, her back to the camera, her hair pale and heavy down her spine, as if she had paused mid-thought. The day had been warm, the kind that makes shadows linger longer than expected. No one remembered asking her to stand there. Only later does the shape beside her become noticeable, smaller, thinner, rising faintly from the ground like breath that forgot to vanish. The family said it must be a trick of light, the dust caught wrong. But the house had once belonged to a mother who walked that path every evening, waiting for a child who never returned from the fields. In the photograph, the woman appears to be leaving. The smaller figure does not follow. It seems to be watching her go, as though it finally understands the direction home. The kitchen she never left. Family home, southern United States. Late afternoon, 1978. The picture was taken just before supper, when the house still smelled of soap and warm bread. Ruth stood by the sink, smiling politely, one hand resting where it always did after long mornings of work. The yellow walls made everything look softer than it was, and the window let in just enough light to hide the corners. She had already lived there alone for 3 years, though she still cooked as if someone might arrive hungry and late. When the photograph was developed, her daughter noticed the blur first, a faint outline rising near Ruth's shoulder, shaped like a second woman leaning in to help. It seemed harmless, almost familiar. Ruth had learned to cook beside her own mother, standing exactly there, sharing silence more than words. After Ruth passed, the kitchen never felt empty. The sink would be damp in the mornings, and the air carried warmth long after the stove cooled, as if someone was still finishing up, unwilling to leave a meal incomplete. If these photographs left you with the feeling that something didn't quite belong to the present, you're probably not imagining it. Some moments don't fade when the shutter closes, and some figures never fully step away from the frame. What did you notice in these images? A trick of light? A memory caught mid-breath? Or something still quietly watching? Share what you see in the comments. And if these stories stayed with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me as we continue uncovering old photographs where the past may not be finished with us yet.